Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the inaugural episode of Trojan Talks. This is where I'm going to blather on about a wide range of topics pertaining to technology, games, that sort of thing. Basically, whatever's on my mind or floating my boat at the time. So this is going to be a work in progress. There's going to be growing pains, so just bear with me. And of course, feedback is always going to be greatly appreciated. But with that said, let's just get into this and see how this train wreck ends up. October 27th was supposed to see the release of World of Warcraft Shadowlands expansion. However, as I'm sure almost everybody knows by now at this point, it was delayed. And honestly, I saw this coming. Back when they announced Shadowlands, they were vague about the release dates. They cited only fall of 2020. And they kept up that vagueness even into the summer with fall rapidly approaching. And then Blizzard finally announced October 27th as the release date. But on October 1st, they stated the release would be postponed to quote-unquote later this year. Just more vagueness coming out of Blizzard, right? But on October 29th, they stated Shadowlands would be releasing on November 23rd. So, not overly far away, and frankly, a delay to the expansion isn't a big deal. In fact, I'm pretty sure that the Burning Crusade was delayed significantly back in 07 when that thing came out. So this really isn't anything new. However, personally, I've been really looking forward to Shadowlands. But I guess I'm kind of an oddity in that my excitement wasn't necessarily for the end game content. I'm looking forward to it, but I was more so interested in the pre-patch release, which went live on October 13th. It's like this. I've had, what's the term I'm looking for here? A rich history with World of Warcraft. I know that doesn't mean much. I suppose most people who've played this game can say that, as it's been chugging along for something like 16 years now. But in my case, I was part of the closed beta, and I played the shit out of it. And then when the game went to retail, I played the shit out of it. Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King were played religiously. However, a few months after Lich King release, life began to get in the way, and I didn't really have that time to commit as I once did. I guess over time, the way to look at it is I just kind of fell away from World of Warcraft in general. It just incrementally, I just had less and less time to commit to it, and I guess I just stopped playing altogether. I made a brief return in something like, I think it was late 2011 maybe, but I remember the game had changed so much with the release of Cataclysm in 2010 that it seemed completely foreign to me. I had no fucking clue what was going on. Shit was on fire, there were giant cracks in the earth, I remember. The entire landscape and story had changed. I played for a bit in that period, but I really didn't get sucked into it like I once had because it didn't feel like the World of Warcraft I had known. So again, I basically stepped away from it and I shelved it. I said I wasn't playing it anymore. So I never played Mists of Pandaria, Warlords of Draenor, or Legion. I'd seen the announcements for the expansions being released, but I had zero interest. And then something, I guess, a tad serendipitous happened. In the fall of 2018, I had to take a few months off work for surgery. Nothing life-threatening or crazy or anything like that, but I was prevented from going to work for a while, and I found myself stuck at home while my wife went off to work every day. And I figured, I need to do something to occupy my time. And I decided after a little bit that I was going to get back into an MMORPG. The year before, I had ceased playing Star Wars The Old Republic after a 7-year run of just grinding the shit out of that game. So I needed something to fill the void. And it was during this musing as to what RPG to play that I saw a commercial for Battle for Azeroth, and I kind of felt the spark in me again. It's the 7th expansion, I thought I might be a little bit behind with what's going on now. I missed how many expansions? There will be 4 at this point that are out now since I've stopped playing. And I decided to resub. I thought, let's do this. So I logged in, and immediately I still had no fucking clue what was going on. I wandered around like a senior citizen with Alzheimer's. Things looked vaguely familiar, but I didn't really know where to start with them or what to do. And I had high-level characters, but I didn't even know, I couldn't fathom what I was supposed to be doing with those guys. So I said, screw it, and I I rolled a human priest and started plugging through the grind from levels 1 to 120. And I remember at that time thinking, my god, this is 120 levels I'm going to have to grind through. I remember the grind to level 60, and that was a pain. But bearing that all in mind, I loved playing the Eastern Kingdom quests with my priest, and when it came time to actually, venture into the Dark Portal into Outland, I loved that. It was great. It was a complete blast from the past. I was having a great time. However, near the midway point of the quest in Outland, I realized I was outstripping the zones by leveling far too fast. This forced me to skip quests and really in whole areas, and I basically I guess it stopped becoming about the exploration and the story, and it became a never-ending quest to find pertinent quest givers to give me the peak XP to feed the endless slog of grinding level by level, slowly towards level 120. By the time I hit Pandaria, I was blowing through levels and entire zones were completely unplayable. And I guess that kind of tails into my excitement for Shadowlands. Their planned level squish, lowering the level cap from 120 to 60 is a huge move on Blizzard's part. This level squish, coupled with a brand new character leveling process, means that people like me who fell off the World of Warcraft train ages ago can go back and we can experience the story and content from various expansions without having to power level through the zones before the story unfolds. And for those of you that are listening that don't know, when you roll a new character in World of Warcraft, provided you've got at least one max level character, which now would be level 50 after the squish, you're given the option of starting in your character's traditional starting zone, or starting in a new zone called Exile's Reach, where the game basically, it spoon feeds you the mechanics as you work from levels 1 to level 10. If you don't have a max level character like a level 50, you're obligated to start in Exile's Reach for that character that you roll. But regardless of where you do the first 10 levels, Exile's Reach or your racially specific starting zone, once you hit level 10, you're given a choice. You can go to Kul'Tiras and dive right into the rescaled Battle for Azeroth content, or you can opt to do levels 10 to 50 in basically any one of the historical expansion timelines, or, for that matter, even in the vanilla game content. This means you can roll a character and experience from start to finish any content in its entirety without power leveling past it. And then, once you hit level 50, you're ready to go for Shadowlands content. It's quite frankly, I'm going to say this, it's a fantastic way of opening up the game for players to either re-explore or completely discover for the first time, what's going on, what the game's about. What I'm hoping doesn't happen, though, is another delay on the release of the Shadowlands content itself, as while I'm really digging this new leveling system, I've got a few max level characters patiently waiting for the new content, so I'm really hoping there aren't more delays to this thing. And while we're talking about delays, let's address the elephant in the room. The giant elephant that everybody who is even remotely plugged into video games in 2020 is aware of. Cyberpunk 2077. This thing has been firmly seated on the delay bus. Cyberpunk was announced back in 2012. I know, right? We're talking 8 years ago. I remember seeing trailers for this thing in 2013. But it was still pretty vague at the time. It wasn't fleshed out even remotely. They were still at the initial design phases of this thing. However, at E3 2019, CD Projekt Red announced an April 2020 release date. But I read, I think it was sometime back this summer, that there was actually an internal delay of sorts, as the game was supposed to, within the internal confines of the company, be slated for a fall of 2019 release. So they delayed it into 2020, which, that's fine. It's an internal delay. That doesn't matter. I'm sure they happen all the time, unbeknownst to us. But then they announced a delay publicly to September 17th of 2020, and then a second delay to November 19th. At every juncture, CD Projekt Red has cited issues with making the game compatible with legacy consoles. The Xbox One S and the PlayStation 4. The game has evolved internally, at least I can tell at least 2 times, with the ambition and the scale basically ramping up. This has obviously become a recipe for disaster, as they're developing a game that will undoubtedly run well on mid to high range PCs, and of course next generation consoles, but is likely going to struggle due to the sheer scale of the game on this generation consoles, your Xbox One S's, your PS4s. So on October 27th, when they announced yet another delay, this time I think it was until December 10th, I wasn't shocked, even remotely. They're still having issues with this gen consoles. Obviously, it's going to be a hardware issue at this point. You know, the console tech for this generation is dated at this point. And I'm not a developer, but I can't imagine it being easy, even remotely, trying to make a AAA game run on an Xbox One S as well as a PS5 and optimize it enough so it runs decently on the One S, but also flashy enough that it doesn't look like it was rendered on a fucking potato on the PS5. You know, it can't be easy. I don't want to dump on CD Projekt Red. After all, they make excellent games. I mean, just look at the Witcher series. They're fantastic games. But I think they're at a bit of a crossroads here. Is it a sound decision to constantly keep delaying and delaying? That's the big question here. People may become fed up and cancel pre-orders, and it undermines your credibility with the consumer. So I'm really curious to see if CD Projekt Red just says fuck it and delays the game until like into the new year, and it gives them the time they need to make this thing work across all platforms. And that's really one of their only two options. They can delay until 2021 and take the potential consumer hit, or, and this is an abysmal idea, bearing this in mind. Keep in mind, this is a horrible idea, but this is option 2 they have here. Cave to public pressure and just fire out the game on December 10th, despite the fact it may not work well on this generation systems. If Plan B is the case, they'll likely anger a massive portion of their consumers. And frankly, I think a delay until 2021 is the better course of action. But bear in mind, I have no clue what I'm talking about. I'm not a developer. I'm just a guy with an opinion and a microphone. But if I had to vote, I would say Plan A, delay it until it is actually worthy of being called a AAA game. However, speaking of angry consumers, I saw a post from CD Projekt Red the other day. I think it was the lead developer, but don't quote me on that. But this employee from CD Projekt Red asked that fans, and I'm quoting this directly here from the article that I read, exercise some basic human decency by not continuing to send the Polish studio death threats. Yes, this is what our society has become. We're sending death threats to a Polish game studio over video game delays. Now I get it. People are annoyed. As a gamer, I know there is nothing more annoying than a release date creeping closer for a game you're really excited for, only to be extended, or to have that delay extended by the studio. But there's angered and frustrated, and then there's crafting a heater of an email and firing it off to a studio complete with death threats. That's just insanity. So while I'm annoyed, folks, I haven't gone banana sandwich yet and sent death threats to game developers in Poland. Cyberpunk is going to come out. We just need to wait with zen-like patience for it to be the polished product that I think we all want, and I guess at this point rightly deserve to come from CD Projekt Red. Well, there you have it. Delays. They abound right now in the video game world. And there's not much we can really do about it, but we can kind of vent our frustrations. So what are your thoughts on the delay of Shadowlands and Cyberpunk 2077? Are you grinding new characters in the Shadowlands pre-patch like I am and absolutely loving it? Or are you on your, say, 3rd or 4th draft of your scorcher of an email to CD Projekt Red? Let me know in the comments down below, vent your frustrations at will, and until next time, thanks for dropping by all.